It's a little cold today. I know. Yes, yesterday or last time we had this talk, it was hot. At least for me, my seat was on fire. I was sweating. I was nervous, so I was sweating even more. But today's, I feel relaxed. I feel pretty cool, and it's. I think it was because last time I had to just talk about myself, and nobody likes to talk about themselves. It's tough, but I think it was important to do. But it was a little stressful. I was a little nervous, and honestly, I would just never put that on someone else. That would be just pretty bad for me to do. So naturally, today, Jake, I'm gonna make you do exactly that. And yeah, honestly, it's there's like you kind of said too last time. There's stuff that you know that I know about you, but there's stuff that I don't know. And selfishly, there's more I want to know. But I also think it'll be very, beneficial to hear just more about your journey and your insight and your infinite wisdom. So I think this episode today is just all about you, man.
I don't know about infinite wisdom, but I will do my best.
Yeah. So yeah, I think honestly, just I think it'd be a good place to start, similar to the last one, where it's just this whole training thing that we're talking about that we love so much, this fighting against gravity and resistance. Just how did you get sucked into it? How did you get started?
Yeah. So I think the real answer is like playing sports growing up. That kind of got me to finally actually start, but like the real answer was that one of my early core memories was seeing Dragon Ball Z on TV, and just they were jacked, they trained, they got stronger, they did cool stuff, and so that I think put the idea in my head, and then I started playing sports and primarily basketball, but then played soccer growing up. I played a little bit of baseball when I was really little, but I don't really count that personally. And then tried to play football in high school and hated it and quit after a few months. But the nice thing about that was it kind of got me to, take a step beyond like push-ups and sit-ups in the living room. And now we go out and we actually start lifting weights a little bit. So that was really my first exposure, was my freshman year of high school, which is a little bit later than you, right? So
To take us earlier, yeah, because I was the senior year of high school, towards
oh,
the
was it?
ending,
Oh,
yeah, finishing graduating, yeah. It was like the
uh,
reverse. So it was like that. It was depending on like the actual lifting in the gym was post senior year, but like push ups in the basement for me. You were in the living room. You were a step above, literally.
you
Uh,
should get some, though.
say again.
Some weights though, right?
I guess if you count like the 12-pound medicine ball that I would do push ups like this, like those kind of push ups,
Sure.
then that works. Yeah. So about
Um,
the same time, basically.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when I first started, which is really funny to think back on hindsight, because the programs that they would do, like they had this old computer that would print out on a piece of paper the program for the day, and it was like there was some percentage stuff, and it was just really bad. Like it's crazy to think back in hindsight. Like it's amazing that people weren't getting hurt left and right. What they were having us do, no coaching on technique, just nothing. But hey, that's Midwest football. So
Yeah. Just get in
um,
there and move some stuff.
yeah, that was kind of what got me in the door. And then I did that for a little bit, and then I fell off. And then I did it for a little bit, and then I fell off, and it was just super hit and miss through high school. That was, when I was feeling really excited about, basketball season and all that kind of stuff, and I was doing more of it. And during the summer breaks, I would kind of relax a little bit more sometimes, and it'd just be like, oh, I'm working on the skill stuff for the sport, you
Mhm.
know. Um, but yeah, it was super hit and miss. And then in my senior year, there was some uh, personal life stuff that like really threw me off the game. And it was I think December of my senior year when all that happened, and then I just stopped completely. And so that would have been what, December of 2011, because I'm old. So we, so yeah, so I just kind of stopped completely, and was just going on with life, started working and all that kind of stuff. And then what sort of brought me back was kind of similar to your story, just being a little bit uncomfortable with how you look and how you feel in your own skin, and For me, I was never like super overweight, but I was always kind of like skinny fat, quote unquote. Just, no muscle, a little bit of a belly. But like, I was like, man, I'm just not really stoked about this. And I'm just always kind of uncomfortable. And I just wanted to change that. Right. So I did P90X, in my apartment, and well, most of it anyway. Some of it I couldn't do pull-ups in my apartment, but I did the best I could with that because I was scared to go back to the gym by myself. Because you didn't have the whole team. High school was like the whole team was going together, right? So I was scared to go myself, and I needed something to just kind of ease in. It wasn't a big money commitment. It wasn't a big time commitment. It wasn't, it was just easing in, taking the first step, you might say.
Okay. Look at
Throwback.
that. Episode 2. Oh gosh, that was forever ago.
So but yeah, that was the step. And then I kind of I built a little bit of confidence with that of like, okay, well, I can challenge myself in this way. I can do this thing and it's kind of fun. And so eventually one of my friends was really into working out, and I just texted him. I was like, hey dude, like, can I just go with you? It's similar to your story, right? I was just like, bro, like, I'm having a hard time getting there by myself. Can I go with you and just, show me, you can show me what you're doing, but like, for the most part, I just need a buddy to be with me. And he was immediately was just like, yeah, dude, absolutely. We go, and I would, it was great. And it was really comforting at the same time. It was also a little bit embarrassing because I was like, wow, I'm so weak and I'm so small compared to my friend, and compared to just, the average person there. And so I'd kind of gotten through that experience, had kind of gotten over that initial fear of just going into the gym. But then now the new thing was, okay, well, how do I keep doing this and work through the feeling of inferiority, basically. So that was kind of the next step that took quite a bit of time. And I've mentioned this before, I think on Instagram, but like, I used to organize my training split. So during this time, I was kind of learning about training and nutrition and stuff on my own. So I would spend a bunch of time writing up like a workout program, and I specifically organized it based upon when the gym was busy. And I knew what days and what times on those days, because I would just go and see what was up. And so I planned it out particularly so that chest day was at the most possibly empty time that I could find, because I was so self-conscious. And still to this day, my chest and arms are the thing that I'm the least confident about. I think they're the weakest on my physique, pretty objectively, I would say. But it all started then, and I was just like, I just don't want anybody to see me out here benching, less than a plate, because that's where I was starting, and it's normal, right? I didn't want to see people seeing me doing lateral raises with the 10s or doing curls with the 15s or the 20s and struggling, and like, I don't know, I was just super self-conscious, and that was my way to just show up, basically. Was to kind of plan it like that, and that kept me consistent enough, not perfectly, but enough to where it started to become a habit. And then that gym closed after a couple months, and I was like, great, I got to start over. But at that point, I felt okay enough to go try somewhere on my own, and so I did that and found this gym that was, it was kind of like one of the more popular spots near where I was living. And like, it wasn't a chain, it was just like a gym, right? It's just a standalone thing. And I showed up there, and it's kind of similar. I was self-conscious, I was nervous, I was whatever. But I just kind of kept trying to show up, and part of it was listening to a lot of like motivational speeches, or listening to, at this time, I'd gotten into a lot of YouTube and like fitness YouTube, and particularly guys like Wayne Norton, who, like, I used that as some extra motivation, right? To just Lane talks like a motivational speaker a lot, in those old video logs. And so that was kind of help keep the fire going of like, just show up, dude, just get there, just show up. You'll do something. If it's not perfect, it's fine. And this gym was amazing, dude. Like it was a cool, like they have so much equipment there. Uh, your normal cardio, whatever stuff, but they have tons of great machines, and they've since upgraded or renovated, I should say, and they've got a bunch of like really, really, really. I miss that gym so much. A lot of really nice machines, big area in the back where you can squat racks, deadlift, like powerlifting equipment. They had strongman stuff, like way in the back corner, and everybody there was so cool. Like I legitimately made friends at that gym, and every time I went, after a long time, you do the thing where you kind of see somebody and you kind of give them the little nod because you see each other every day. Right?
Oh, yep, progression. Slight
And event,
nod, slight
yeah,
wave, slight.
yep. Eventually, it's fist bump, or it's hey, will you spot me real quick, or
Yep.
it's whatever. And then next thing you know, it's like I'm at the gym for 3 hours a day because I'm talking half the time, which was such a weird experience for me, being pretty introverted, and I don't have the easiest time making friends a lot of time. Like I can be very friendly I can get along with anybody, but like a relationship is something that I often struggle with, like really building. And this gym was just such a like, it was like magical, dude. Everybody was homies, and everybody, we were going hanging out. Everyone lifted together. It was super cool, and that really fanned the flame of like, this is not just is this helping me to overcome some of my body image stuff and some of my confidence and some of my anxiety, but now all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm making friends. Like, this is like really reinforcing how cool of a thing this is, and how I wouldn't have met these people without lifting and all of that stuff. And yeah, and this whole time I was kind of just doing, your generic, whatever kind of strength muscle growth combo, whatever. Like it wasn't like powerlifting by any means. It was, I would squat and bench and deadlift, but it was whatever, sets of 8 or something, and then some hypertrophy stuff or whatever. And I'm doing that, and like I said, I was kind of listening to Lane, and found Dr. Zordos, and I found Eric Helms, and some of these guys, and was like, oh, this powerlifting thing sounds kind of cool. I wonder what that's, and some of the guys at the gym were doing that, and I was like, all right, well, whatever, I'll try it. And it seems fun to learn about how to program for that, because like the bodybuilding stuff was pretty especially at that time, it was pretty simple, and powerlifting just felt more complex, and it felt more, more planning, and I had like sort of that more analytical mind even then, and I was like, that sounds really fun, let's try it. So I tried it, and I got hooked bad, dude. It was the powerlifting like ran my life for like, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I was always doing some hypertrophy stuff at the same time because I always had that goal also. But like it was all about powerlifting. I was watching all the meets. I was going to live streams, anything that I could watch, I was doing. I was going to the Arnold every year to watch the big meet. I was like glued to Raw Nationals every year. Whenever one of the friend group would go compete, we'd all go together and help handle each other, and it was so fun. And that was it was it's really funny to think back on now, actually, because early on I made really fast progress, right, as everybody does when they start lifting heavy for the first time. And I eventually became, I was one of the stronger guys in the gym, even without being one of the biggest guys. And I was like, wow, okay, like, I have good genetics for this. Like, am I good at this? Could I do nationals? And I started getting a little bit overexcited, and then all of a sudden, this like 19-year-old kid rolls in, same size as me, and like doubles what I'm lifting on everything. Just repping out 500 squat like crazy. And I was like, okay, I'm humbled. I'm not that, and so that was a good experience too. And I think everybody has that, where you're kind of confronted by your genetics, that like of course, programming stuff, of course, external variables, all those things matter. But like, I'm not gonna double my squat by eating more protein, or you know what I mean? Like,
If you wanted it bad enough, Jake, I think you would have, just shaved off some of your bone in your femur and just had very
that's
small femurs so you could squat more. If
a good
it's
idea.
just, that sounds like that was the thing, right?
That's a good
Honestly.
idea. I should have done that. So yeah, and and funny enough, me and him became friends, and we trained together all the time over the next few years, which was super fun. And his name's Carson Allen, by the way. Shout out Carson, fantastic powerlifter. Um, but we both ended up going up to Illinois State University to finish bachelor's degree, and there I was training at this USA powerlifting, USA weightlifting gym, just doing powerlifting stuff, doing my thing. And then I had a back injury that happened. It wasn't like horrible, but it was enough that I couldn't squat or deadlift for a while. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just doing hypertrophy stuff for a minute. And this was around this time of year, actually, in 2019, a little bit earlier, August 2019. And all of a sudden, October rolls around. I'm like, I still can't squat or deadlift without pain. Cool. So I was like, what if I'll just keep rolling with it. This is fun. My body actually feels great not squatting heavy, and my joints feel better, and it takes me an hour instead of 2.5 hours. And all that's kind of nice. And because at this point, research stuff's picking up, grad school stuff's coming soon. There's a lot of other stuff. And I was like, Ryan Doris was coaching me at the time for powerlifting, and I was just like, what if we try this bodybuilding thing? And that was the start of that first contest prep. I was like, hey, like, I can't squat or deadlift. I've been having fun with this, this style of training, and what the heck, right? Let's just, let's give it a shot. And so that's what we did, and we just started doing, just really leaning into that. And I learned so much through that process. And I, got 5 weeks out, didn't get to compete because the world shut down in March of 2020, and I was okay with it because I still got the process, most of the process anyway. That obviously there are some special things in those last 5 weeks that I didn't get, but I did get a good chunk of the process, and it was fantastic, and it was transformative. And I was like, I will absolutely do this again. I will absolutely come back and finish the job, which is funny because that's where we are now. But so I had that, and then tried my best to do the recovery thing, and it was the analogy I always think about is like coming out of a contest prep, or even just any sort of aggressive diet, is it's those old cartoons where like the ship is in the water and the little hole pops open and you plug it with the finger, and then another hole opens and you plug it with your other finger, then another one, so you stick your big toe in there, and it's just like it's controlling the chaos as well as you can. That's really what it felt like, and I felt so out of control, and it was crazy. In hindsight, it wasn't, I didn't rebound that bad, but it felt so crazy. And then just kind of haven't gone back to. I keep saying I'll go back to powerlifting at some point, but because I was pretty close to some of like my lifetime powerlifting goals. Like I was 297 bench was the heaviest I did, which everybody wants 315, right? So I wasn't that far away. Squat, my goal when I first started powerlifting was a 500 squat, and I hit 452. I will go to my grave saying I got 463 in competition, but they didn't give it to me. I think it was deep enough, but whatever. And then deadlift, I think 507 was the best deadlift I ever did, and I wanted I think 600 was the goal I set when I started. So that one's a ways away. But I'm like, if I go back and train for powerlifting for a while, I feel reasonably confident that I can at least get the squat and bench ones. And I keep saying I'll go back, but I just haven't gone back because it's been fun, and it's also just been more time efficient, which has been important during grad school. And so I was, rolling with that, and then I hit this massive in 20, I think it was maybe the end of 2021 through halfway through 2023. It was like a 2-year span where I just did not care about training at all. And I just hated going to the gym. and I was like, I don't know. I think some of it was just general stress and time commitment stuff, and I had a lot of weird body image stuff coming back where I was like, I don't want people to see me in the gym, so I don't go to the gym. But then I feel like I look worse, so now I even less want to go to the gym. So it's just this cycle that feeds into itself, you know. And I had all that stuff, and then I had hernia surgery, so I couldn't train for a while, and then it was just like one thing after another, where it was really a struggle just to show up, and I had a lot of weeks where I was like once or twice just showing up to do something, and was just trying to work through that, and eventually made it out the other side, and started being more consistent, and it was going much better, and it was more fun again, and um, now we're in 2024, and I start thinking about, man, I want to go back and finish that contest prep that I didn't get to. I have unfinished business. I want to do this thing. And it was so funny because I had paused training with Ryan just to save some money for a bit, because surgery costs and all this stuff, right? And when I started thinking about this, he texted me just randomly, and he was just like, "Bro, like, when are we gonna do this again?" And I was like, "It's a sign, man. Like, this is like the time is now. It's meant to be." The timing was perfect, because I could line it up to compete in the fall, now as we're recording this, which coincidentally is the 10-year anniversary of me consistent, thought out training.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. You didn't even get me flowers.
All right. I sent a whole bouquet of Quest bars and all these protein bars, but I don't know if it's gonna get there in time. And also didn't want to throw off your whole dieting thing,
Yeah.
so it'll be there soon, I promise.
One of those Quest bars is half my days of carbs at this point. So,
oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
But so it's that, and it also was during my PhD, which I know every time I talk about this, people are like, "Why did you want to compete during your PhD? Like, it's so stressful." Like, but it's like, that's the point, dude. Like, I'm so busy, I can't sit here and think about food. That's the whole point. The more busy you, at least for me, right? Like that has been such a cheat code. And so it was that, but it was also like, I'm in the lab all the time. Let's do a cool case study, right? Let's take I'm there anyway. Let's take some measurements. I can get a cool paper out of it. I can collaborate with some people who I really look up to and want to work with and learn from, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, the stars kind of aligned to finally get back into the prep here, and started it, seems like forever ago. And we've slowly but steadily inched our way forward one day at a time, and now here we are, as we record this, less than 2 weeks out from my first show, which, by the time this comes out, I'll probably have already competed in that first one.
Yeah.
But hopefully, barring any weird stuff happening. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's the journey, right? And right now, like, I still have that. I do want to go back to powerlifting at some point, but I very much also have once I get back to off-season mode, like, I know exactly what areas I want to emphasize, like, so I don't know, someday, but
yeah, man, there's so many good things there. I think it's really cool too how well you can articulate your journey and have these really honest reflections, because that's important, and it seems like it's something you obviously thought about, and it seemed like it's very much a big part of you, and it's influenced a lot of the things that you do now, right? That's really cool, and that takes a lot of work and time and effort to get to that mental space. So you should be very proud of that, and then two, also thank you for being so open and sharing things like that, because again, that's just very strong to do, and it's also very helpful, because we all get some insight. I was just smiling the whole time, like, it's so cool, because there's a lot of good things there, and it is motivating and it is inspiring. I have a follow-up question though. It's very interesting to hear the two bigger instances where you kind of fell out of training, right? In the beginning, where it's just that you just weren't training, and then a second time when it happened relatively recently, right, in the beginning of the 2020s. I guess, how did you navigate that space? How did you how'd you get back into the training, right? Because I think a lot of the times people think, you're in this for life. And then kind of going back to my story, where for me it was like, oh, I just love training, it's easy for me. I really haven't had these big instances where I fell out of it. So, like, obviously not everyone's like anyone. So just to hear that side would be very interesting. I think if you could elaborate on that.
Um, so the first time I didn't really have a strategy or anything. I was just kind of going through life, and um, I'll just wait, whatever. This is authentic bodybuilding, right? So let me preface this by saying I do not, I don't like talking about this, not because I'm uncomfortable, but because it always feels like I'm begging for attention or sympathy or something, right? It's none of that. This is real life, right? So senior year of high school, um, early December 2011, my dog died that I'd had for like 14 and a half years, right? I literally didn't remember having him. So he died. I missed the next couple of days of school because I just couldn't go, right? Show up that first day back, and a couple hours into the day, me and some friends are pulled into the principal's office to be told one of our friends had committed suicide. And so, like, those two things back to back was just a lot to deal with, right? I mean, when you're 18, like, you don't have at least I didn't have like the emotional tools to process that.
Yeah.
And so everything, I was just like, I'm doing what I have to do to stay in school and do this stuff. But like, I'm not doing extra, whatever. So to working through that was sort of just like, I don't know, like I really had no help with it. Just because I didn't know, right? Like I didn't seek out help. And so I just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of went through life, and it's one of those things that time doesn't make things go away or heal things necessarily, but you just kind of you learn how to live with this new thing. And so it was one of those things where just eventually I had learned to kind of adjust, and I was like, man, I'm still uncomfortable with how I look. Let me kind of try this again. And so it really was that, just kind of waiting it out initially. And if I could go back, I would definitely do some things differently, which is what I did the second time. So what I did the second time, which was, I didn't have like a traumatic event, but I've talked about this on social media before too, but I will occasionally have some like depression and to a smaller extent, I guess, anxiety. Not in the sense that it's um, less noteworthy, but just in the sense that doesn't impact my training consistency as much. That's one of the things that the anxiety is. They're sort of two separate beasts, right? Like, so when those come up, I have to be intentional with the anxiety is typically around either physical health. So like when I had like the hernia and all that stuff, I was super anxious about that, which is kind of hard to plan your way around. But I had to just be like, okay, well, this is the situation. This is what I can't do. This is what I can do. My future self will thank me for doing the things I can do, right? So let me try to do that. Other anxiety stuff is just, having a lot on your plate. You're super stressed. You're super whatever. That was aided by more planning, doing a better job of like every day jotting down, here's 3 things I'm going to get done today, or just simple stuff, right? There's nothing groundbreaking, but it's just being a little bit more organized and prioritize tasks better and try to work through some of that general stress. The depression stuff is a different beast in that, like, I can't really intellectualize my way through it. And, it's sort of it feels like a longer or a more in-depth journey of trying to figure out what's the root of this thing and process that. So some of it was body image stuff. Some of it was a general like fear of death, basically. Like time's going so fast, I only get one life. What all this kind of time pressure stuff because life is finite. Some of it was like relationship stuff. Some of it, just general self-worth that gets tied into all those other, like everything's tied together, right? So when all that is going on, it's sort of a multi-tiered process. That's not the right term I'm trying to use, but hopefully you know what I mean. There's
Yeah.
multiple things
Yep.
going on.
Yeah.
So I started going to therapy that was kind of helpful. And if anyone listening has done therapy, then they know that you're not going to gel with every therapist, right? Not everybody is right for everybody. Sometimes you got to try different ones. Thankfully, I have somebody I see now who is unbelievable and just amazing, right? So, but the first one, it was better than nothing, right? It still helped just to talk about things, but whatever. So I started doing that, and basically was just trying to like be nice to myself, like not force going to the gym out of some feeling of guilt or um, like I have to do this, right? I feel ashamed of myself for not going to the gym. Like I don't want to force myself to do it for that reason. And basically what it was like, I was like, dude, if you just really don't want to go, don't go. It's okay, you know? And did I make progress during that time? Not really. Did I lose muscle? Probably a little bit. Probably not a ton because I still trained a little bit, But it was, if I really just can't get myself to go, that's okay. If I can go, we're going to focus purely on having fun. That's it. I don't care about the program. I don't care about optimal, none of that. We're just going to go in there and do whatever seems fun. And that was kind of my desire, was just to really make sure that I'm igniting the enjoyment aspect of it and trying to kind of work through some of the emotional stuff at the same time, with the hope that they would come together and we'd be okay. And that's what happened. And I think that would happen for anybody, right? Everyone's situation is different, and the time scale might be different. But I really believe in therapy and in being kind to yourself, right? And I think that they'll lead you to the right place if you find the right person who can really identify with you and help you and all that good stuff. So um, anyway, long ramble. But if I could go back to my high school self, I'd be like, do those same things, right? Because I think that's a very helpful thing, and it can be expensive, it can be time consuming, it can be emotionally exhausting at times, it can be difficult to do, but it's so worth it, man. And it really it's out there for a reason, right? It's a cool thing. It actually helps.
Man, yeah. Honestly, again, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing those things. And it's just, again, kind of like we talked about the first episode, like this is stuff that people need to hear. And just doing that and sharing that story like that is going to be so helpful for so many people. And it's helpful for me, like just hearing that. I'm like, damn, there's a lot of stuff I could resonate with, right? It's not in my head. I'm like, yeah, I totally understand. And I think, again, the reason why it's important to say those things and to talk about it is because a lot of times the process gets romanticized quite a bit, and
Yeah.
it gets like shown, social media highlight real things like that. But it's more when we do talk about the process, it's like, well, yeah, just keep grinding. It's gonna be okay. But what does that mean? What if you can't grind? What if you need to take a step back, a sidestep, whatever it is? And I think like your journey, right? Taking the time to fuel up and to focus on yourself first and foremost so that you can keep moving forward is such a big important part of that. And some people maybe are afraid to do that, but it's like you might not get where you want to be if you don't. So I think that's why it was really cool to hear, and to just to be again so honest and authentic with that, because it's like it's not always linear. It's not, and
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, again, really appreciate you sharing all that. So yeah,
Thanks. Yeah,
and
I mean, it's the truth. I don't know.
yeah,
Like you said, it's not linear. Sometimes it just goes all over the place, and it is what it is.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's so when you were talking about your training and stuff too, obviously some things are overlapping and some school stuff was thrown in there, and you talked about some of these people. I think you said Eric Helms or something like that. Whoever, it just some guy. Who, how did you know that it was something that you wanted to study and to get into, get some more information about and actually take it to that formal education level, right? Because you said you were listening to podcasts, you were listening to some things, but it's how did you like what was going through your mind in pursuing that? And you can start as early as just like undergrad or master's, PhD. It's kind of what does that journey and process look like and mean to you essentially?
Yeah, this is actually a funny story. So it starts probably a year ish before my undergrad. That so I was working at Target, right, retail, whatever, and I just hated it, right. But I didn't know what else. Like I had nothing else to do. I wasn't in school. Right after high school, I tried to go to college for engineering because that's what we were all kind of geared towards. I would have been good at it. Like I was good at those classes and whatnot, but like I just hated it and I was super bored and I was like, this isn't right. So I dropped out, and then just worked full time for like 3.5 years or 4 years or something because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, when I figure out what I want to do, I will go back. So during this time is when I started lifting again in the middle here when I worked at Target. And I wanted to learn more, like I was saying, is listen to YouTube videos. And I found, was very fortunate to almost right away stumble across Lane Norton. And from him, it spreads out to everybody else that we mentioned, right? And so a lot of them started talking about coaching. And I was just like, you can do that for a job? That's crazy. That sounds fun, And then I found, I can't remember what part of the spider web of content creators that I found it, but I eventually found Steve Hall, and he was talking about coaching a lot, and I was just like, wow, like this is a thing, like this exists, people do this. How do I do that? So I wanted to do. I went and got a personal trainer certification. And I was like, let me start with that, and started doing that at like a Gold's Gym, and I hated it. I was like, oh no, but I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the job itself. I just the clientele that I got started with and the schedule and the commute and all that just made it really rough. So great people, just not the training goals that I preferred to work with. Anyway, so then I was like, man, I just don't really feel satisfied with the current knowledge that I have. And so I'd like to learn more anyway. And then I also was like, I want to be this online coach, but like, how do you stand out? There's so many of these people. And, I started thinking about the people who do stand out and that I respect and that seem highly respected in the field. What's the through line? What's the common thing? And I was like, a lot of these people have PhDs. I'll go get a PhD because that kills two birds with one stone. Yeah. And so like that, I wanted to do a PhD because I wanted to be an online coach. And so I moved back in with my parents, started going to community college. Then, it was powerlifting, and then got into my undergrad and, kept kind of going through there. And I had this memory that early on listening to, we talked about this before too, Lane's original podcast with him and Sohi, that Physique Science Radio. It was a great podcast.
So good.
Yeah. And one time they had Dr. Zordos on there talking about probably DUP. And they were talking to this guy, and he mentioned his master's program. And I was just like, man, like I'm thinking about going back to school. How cool would that be to do my master's with Mike Zordos, who I heard on this podcast talk to my hero, Lane Norton. And, I'm going through undergrad and I start to figure out what's the grad school process. How do I do this? And the only application I filled out was FAU because I was like, I want to work with him because I'd been learning too that like, you can learn similar things in a lot of different master's programs, but at the end of the day, especially if you want to do a PhD, the mentor you have, the research that you do, like you should seek out the lab that you want to be in that you feel is going to benefit you the most. That's sort of what I was told. And I was like, okay, well, I want to work with Dr. Zordos. I don't care where his school is. I'm going to go. I knew I was going to hate Florida. I had never been on a plane before. Like I was super scared about it, but I was like, whatever, this is what I want to do. So we're going to do it. Got on a plane, went and visited, and it was awesome. And the plane was terrifying, but the visit was awesome. The plane was fine. And then, so I got to kind of conquer that fear a little bit, which was nice. And then, came back and got accepted to the program and started doing the whole muscle lab thing. And along the way was like, this research is really cool. I actually, man, I can't believe I skipped this. So the last semester of my undergrad, I did a research project as well that I had been talking to Dr. Zordos because I'd been applying to the program and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, hey, like I'm trying to do this thing. Would you mind helping me? Give me your input on the methods and help me write the paper and stuff. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. As I wasn't even his student yet, he was willing to help. And, the cool thing about that undergrad study was just that I was doing it completely by myself. The lab wasn't really doing anything related to what I was interested in. So I just went up to the guy who ran it and was like, hey, like, can I run my own study? Like, here's my idea. And he said yes, and My idea wasn't perfect. Dr. Z helped me quite a bit, and but it wasn't a bad idea. I had picked a topic, accuracy of RIR ratings, that there wasn't that much research. It's a pretty simple question. It can be an acute study. So it's pretty simple and manageable. And so I was purposeful with that. My writing for the first draft of the intro and stuff was just awful, just horrendous. And I should go try and dig that back up somewhere. That'd be really funny. But yeah, so I was doing that in my undergrad, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, right? I wish I didn't have to do it by myself, but this is cool. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll probably like the experience at FAU. I get there and it's awesome, and it's like I'm powerlifting again, right? Like it's a squat and bench press study. We're just in there loading plates and spotting each other and yelling and screaming, and the music's blaring. Like, it was cool. And that was like the initial experience, and I was like, yeah, man, like I'm in the right place. And I was learning so much from not just Dr. Z, but being around the whole team. And I was like, this is it, dude. This is it. And I had kind of gotten my foot in the door with coaching a little bit towards the end of my undergrad. I started doing some nutrition coaching at the gym that I was training at. And so I was like, yeah, like, okay, like we're moving, things are going, right? I'm getting some experience, got my foot in the door. We're doing this research thing, right? Once I get that PhD, people will trust me and I can be a coach. And dude, thank goodness that I found out I like research along the way, man, because like that's just it would have been tough. It would have been tough. But yeah, so like I'm kind of just doing the masters, and I was like, yeah, of course I want to continue and finish this thing out. And it took me a minute to like really understand exactly what I wanted to research specifically, but I knew it was something in the hypertrophy realm. And once it came time to figure out where to do the PhD, my initial plan, as we talked about, was I was going to follow you, right? Like, I talked to you a lot before I went to FAU about like, how did you get in here, right? Like, I name dropped you in my email to get accepted, all this. And then you went out with Dr. Helms, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do, right? That's exactly what I want. It's the connections that I want. It's the kind of research I want to do. It's the mentor that I want, all these things. And then Dr. Zordos started his program, and it was perfect timing. I was able to just slide right in and not do the 47-hour flight and, all the stuff that I'm sure AUT would have been incredible, and I would have loved it just as much. But it has worked out quite nicely to stay here, and I'm very glad that I did. And the research I'm doing is really exciting, and yes, but it's just all started with wanting to be a coach, and I'm coaching.
Yeah.
So it's like everything worked out, but it was just such a funny way for it to start.
To poke at that a little bit more. So it's kind of like a weird thing to say. Like, I'm gonna do a PhD so I can be a coach.
Yeah.
People might be like, dude, you could just do that anytime or whenever.
Yeah.
So I guess like specifically, what do you think that's gonna make you stand out, or rather, what kind of skills do you think are gonna translate to that? I guess what is it? Because obviously, like, oh, I'm a doctor, listen to me. That's not you. That's not how obviously you're approaching it. But it's like, obviously being in a similar position. What did you come out of it, or what are you getting out of it that you feel like really sets you aside?
That's a good question. I think some of it is okay. So there's a couple things that are coming to mind. One is the skills. A lot of the skills that you learn through grad school are not textbook knowledge. Like, you learn that stuff too, but you learn a lot about organization and systems and prioritizing tasks, keeping the goal, all these kind of like more data-centric things and more system-centric things that I think help a lot for programming and for helping clients to not derail themselves and sabotage and all those kinds of things from a programming standpoint, at least. And then obviously learning about just being up to date on the current research helps. And then being around the people that we've been around, we have some opportunities to learn from people who are at the top of the field, and interact with those people, and just all kinds of cool stuff that help, not just from a knowledge standpoint, but also from a exposure standpoint. Like when you publish research and the names on the paper are you couple other people, Eric Helms, Mike Zordos, people notice it, so you start to get a little bit of exposure that way, and that's really cool. But then I think the other piece was for me, right? And this sounds arrogant, but like I'm I was very intentional when I chose Ryan Doors to coach me, because I was like, I know how to write a program, I know how to do macros, like I know how to, I'm not losing weight this week. Let's give it another week. Still nothing. Maybe let's drop 100 calories. Like I know how to do this stuff. At least until you get really deep into a diet, right? But I know how to do this for the most part. What I need help with is soft skills. I need help with like the mental stuff and how to navigate all these different things that come up. And Ryan he's such a special person, man. He knows so much about psychology and philosophy and just life, and he can take it and just talk to you like a normal human being and just be like, dude, like this is what's up, right? And he'll just tell you very straightforward this, like, I mean, sometimes it's super simple, but sometimes it's just such a like powerful, like, whoa kind of thing, and I wanted that. And I was also pretty upfront with him from the start. I was like, hey, like, is it okay if I ask you questions? Like, I want to do what you're doing. I want to learn from you. And he's like, yeah, of course. So my relationship with him grew quickly to the point where, he was helping me a lot with like learning some stuff, and just taught me so much about the non-X's and O's things. And like the way that I coach is because Ryan coached me, right? Like I emulate so much of what he does. And so much of it is focused, like his brain is called Fortis EQ, right? EQ, emotional intelligence. Like that's integral to what he's doing. And like that's what I want too, because that's coaching, right? Like writing a program, programming and coaching are two different things, and the program is important, but I think the relationship that you build with the people you work with is more important and helps you write better programs also, so that was important to me to kind of get that in there and integrate the skills I learned from Ryan on the emotional side with the research skills, the data skills, all that kind of stuff I got from the PhD and the mentorship I've gotten there. Put those together and see what happens, and I like to think that it's a combination that you don't see all the time. I think you are right in that same vein. I think there's a few people that are, I think Alberto Nunez comes to mind, who's fantastic at that. Erica is fantastic at that. Dr. Zordas doesn't coach much anymore, but I think he's like that too. There's certainly are people that are like that. I'm sure I'm leaving some out. But it's not a completely unique skill set, but I do think it's something that you don't see a ton of. And I'm proud to coach that way,
Yeah. It's such a cool, that's so cool in many ways. But I think at the end of Harry saying how what it comes down to is you just did all these things to learn how to be a better human being. And then through that,
Yeah.
sharing all that with other people. And that's super important in a field like coaching where you're working with other human beings, right? So here you are, you're saying, hey, these are all avenues that are very important. The research side of things, continuing education, asking questions, seeking answers, and being a continuous cycle, not just I get my degree, I'm done. And I think that's what separates you in your PhD and in general, like you're always going to be a learner. That's kind of what you signed up for. And that's what the dedication you put to get that PhD kind of says. And then you're doing that. And then you have the coaching side of things where you're getting coached by someone who very much focuses on emotional intelligence, people, and then you're putting it all together into you, and then you're adding your own spice and your own flair to it. Here's my Jake stuff to it, which is another fantastic human being. And then your outcome is something so unique, so special, so powerful, and it's just cool to hear you talk about that and to be able to now share that and to give back, right? Because essentially why we're doing it in a way too.
Yeah.
So it's like, and talk about that. It's just with your coaching now, I guess you kind of talk about how you got into it, but it's like, what is that? What does it look like, right? In terms of the everyday life, day to day, and like what does coaching really mean to you?
Ooh, wow. Coaching's special, dude. Because it always comes back to me with what I got from working with Ryan for so long, for as long as I have, and like I'm a different person. I tell him this all the time. I was like, bro, I would not be here without you. Like, he is going to be in my acknowledgments of my dissertation. Like, the it's it has truly changed how I think about things and how I do things. And whether I was coaching or not, I would be different. And so I always come back to that, and I'm just like, how profound is that? How cool is that? Wouldn't it be cool to, like, you know, if such a relationship were to line up with somebody that I work with, if I can pass those things along and have such an amazing positive influence on, it sounds really arrogant again to be like, I want to influence other people, but like, I think it's a good, and it's an important thing when you get gifts given to you, that we help to kind of pass those forward, at the same time, I have that desire just at the base level to pay it forward, of just all the cool, just everything that lifting has given me, right? I'll say this all the time. Picking up a barbell for the first time is one of the best decisions I've ever made, and it just has shaped so much of my life, and almost all the relationships I have are that I've made through something that happened due to lifting, or school that came from lifting, and all this stuff. My girlfriend, we met because she was competing in bodybuilding, and it's like, it's such an amazing thing in my life, man. And it's important to me. Like, people paid it forward. That's how it got to me, because they were nice enough and generous enough to pay it forward. And so I feel a degree of responsibility to do that as well, and continue that cycle, and to try to leave the space a little bit better than we found it. I think it's a value that we both share, right? It's part of why we're doing this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I have that, and then it's also just fun. It's just cool to meet. I have people, like, we're genuinely just friends. Like, there's some people I don't even coach them anymore. We're just friends,
Yeah.
and it's so cool to meet. Like, you're automatically like-minded to some degree, right? Because you both share this love of training and all that. But it's just cool to meet people and connect. And I don't know, it's like the older I get, the more I realize how important that is too.
Mhm.
And it's just, I don't know, that's amazing. I guess that's what coaching means to me, right? Is all that stuff. And it's, it also, let's be honest, you got to pay your rent.
Mhm.
So, like, I'm grateful to have built a skill set that I can use to help pay the bills. We're not rolling in it by any means. But that's not the goal either, right? The goal is to, I want to be, sustainable,
Yeah.
but we don't need to be filthy rich. We just need to be sustainable, and I want to help pay it forward and just do all the cool things that other people have done. Um,
Yeah,
for me.
creatine's rising in price, so we gotta make sure we can
Dude.
get that and sustain our gains as much as we can there. But
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that was very well said. And it's, like you said, coaching is really fun, and it is just such a cool thing to do. You have such great opportunities to make a difference. Like you said, it might sound like weird, like you're influencing all that, but it's more of just two human beings having a conversation and learning to grow, and both people learn from that. Like you said too, right? You're a coach, but you went to go get a coach, and vice versa. Coaches nowadays always have other coaches, because it's one of those things, you're just always crafting and honing that skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is, you're continuously growing, just like continuing education. So, like, as you can see in yourself, all these things do play a role, and it's kind of all coming together into you, which is really cool. And yeah, just do have a question about the coaching too. Earlier you had said you did the in-person coaching, and then when you're talking about what you wanted to do in the future, you specifically said, I want to be an online coach.
Yes.
Why did that decision, why was that such a pretty straightforward decision for you? And like, what is that difference? And then, yeah, I'll just start there. Like, why online coaching versus not?
Yeah. That also reminds me of what we just talked about, in the sense that online coaching specifically, also, to me, it just aligns with my personality and my lifestyle preferences, to where, like, it just, every day I'm amazed that I'm like, wow, like, this exists. This is cool. And it just, I don't know, it's so, I love it for that too. But the reason is, I struggle very much with the idea of having a client who does not want to be there, which is what it was when I was doing the in-person PT stuff. It was, the clients that I had were all and they said this too, right? This isn't me talking bad about. This is literally what they would say to me: is that they just, I don't want to be here. My doctor told me I have to, and I just need you to motivate me. I need you to whatever. And I'm like, to me, I'm just like, if you don't want to be here, don't be here, dude. Like, why are you wasting your money? There's other stuff you can do. There's other exercise you can do. Like, this is crazy. And I just very early realized how important that was to me to not have a clientele where they just had no interest in it. I just, I think a lot of coaching is like we're giving to the other person, but we're getting stuff back also, right? We feed off of that back and forth and the collaboration and all that. And so there's that aspect that's probably the biggest thing. But I think also my personality, I really enjoy flexibility and agency over my time. That's one of my biggest values in life is I want to control what I do with my time. And so coaching, while the work needs to be done and needs to be done usually on a certain day, whether I do it at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., or 8 p.m., doesn't matter. So if I sleep in, or if, like now during prep, I have to be very intentional with when I eat, when I go to the gym, when I go to bed. Other times it's not so intentional, right? It's kind of more fluid. Or maybe there's something comes up, I got a Zoom call, or I got to go to the lab and do something, or whatever, right? Or maybe some of that depression kicks back in. I just can't do this right now, and I got to take, I can shift stuff around in my day and still get everything done. Nobody's waiting on me. Like it's fine. But I have that buffer space to adjust my day. And that is massive for me. Massive. So like that right there is like the key piece of freedom that I never want to lose. And who knows if that's realistic or not, but that's at the front of mind all the time is just like, I'm so grateful for that. And I don't have it with everything, right? Like data collection is data collection. You got to be there at certain times, and I don't have agency over my time, and that's okay. But I just don't want my entire life like that. I don't want my entire work life, I guess, like that. So those are the reasons. And then also, you think about in-person personal training, you're sort of limited to the clientele at that gym, which is good and bad, right? Some gyms will give you clients and you don't have to market yourself and all that stuff. Whereas online, you have access to everybody who's online, which is nice, but also bad because now you have to stand out and there's so many other coaches that you're competing with for attention. So there's good and bad both ways. But to me, that one kind of came out in the wash and the other stuff outweighed it.
Yeah. And what it seems like to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if this is wrong. But based on how you're saying it and how you're approaching it with the online coaching, you like flexibility. And it's important to say that that's not selfish. Because some people might hear that, like, oh, he just wants to have his own schedule and do what he wants when he wants. And knowing you, that is literally the opposite. That's not you. The reason why you like the flexibility and the reason why you like having the openness to the clientele, one, the clients are going to come to you because they want to learn. They want to be there. Like you said, that follows in line with those values. But the flexibility for you means that you can then provide them with the best service possible. Because if you had to be there at 8 a.m., if you came in and your sleep was terrible or you're mentally just off or whatever it is, there's so many other variables that can then affect the work. And sometimes that's just out of our control. That's just the way it is. But it happens. And that sucks. As someone who really cares about helping people like yourself, if you do that, that can sometimes feel the opposite of what you want to do, right? That kind of hurts inside. So I think that
yeah.
Yes, yeah, because then they don't get their most value, and then you're like, damn it, I didn't provide the service that I want to. That's not how I am. Like, I really value giving people good stuff. So I think that's what flexibility means in that sense. So like, would you agree? Is that kind of how it seems?
For sure.
And yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like,
it also helps avoid burnout, I think, at
yeah,
least for me, that like, just the flexibility in general lets me not, like when I worked retail and it's like, I got to clock in at 6 a.m. every day. Right.
yeah,
And it's just mind numbing. And, you start to not care because other people don't care. And it's, you get burned out. At least I shouldn't speak for other people. I got burned out really quick. And I just, school is similar thing. It is what it is. So that helps me avoid the burnout too, which I think is very important to be proactive with. At least for myself, knowing myself, I'm trying to make sure that I don't get burned out with coaching in 10 years and all of a sudden like, oh, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So trying to lay those bricks early.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, coaching is cool, and you do a really good job of it. It's
Coaching's cool.
just, it's like, and I could just tell. I haven't been coached by you, but you could just tell again because you're such a good human that it means, and all these things you said in this podcast, you really do care, and that's such an important thing to
Yeah.
be as a coach. And
That shouldn't be a special thing.
yeah, exactly, and that's why I'm saying it because it's like, it's because
Thank
it is such a large pool of people that sometimes it's unfortunate that it just happens. People think it's an easy job, and when they think it's easy or they go in it for the money, they miss the entire point of it, and it hurts. It hurts people like us who are like, we really just want to help. Like, it's no, like that's
Yeah. And there's other stuff, if you want to do a really, really good job, there's other stuff that's going to get you a lot more money.
yeah.
Because you can't work with endless people, right? If you're going to keep
Yeah.
the quality high. So,
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so in line with the coaching, in the idea of being able to help others and just, just pass on that knowledge. One of the things that you've gotten into and you really appreciated was creating content in that kind of whole space too, right? And how did you get into that, and what does that kind of look like?
I think I asked you for help to start. I wanted to get in because it went in line with well, how do I stand out with these other people trying to be online coaches? And while I was in school, I was like, I don't want to wait till I graduate to start. Like, I want to start. Any momentum I can build early I'll be grateful for it. So I think this was, I don't know, halfway through my undergrad or something like that. I started to be like, okay, well, let me try to do this and, do the whole evidence-based content thing when we talk about this new research or whatever. And I'm sure it was horrible. I'm sure it was horrible, but I tried my best with what I knew at the time, right? And I remember making this thing for Instagram and sending it to you and being like, hey, dude, like I know that like you see this content, you make some content for people too. Like, what do you think this is horrible and I should just try again, or do you think it's okay? And you were like, no, dude, this is good. And so that gave me a lot of confidence to try it. And so that's what I did. I just tried that, and I was like, okay, well, what I see from other people who are successful is they're consistent. And maybe they don't post every day, maybe they don't post every other day, maybe it's once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, but they're consistent in that sense. So I was like, that's important. I want to pick something that's sustainable and that I can be consistent with. And that's shifted over time. What feels sustainable? Initially, I overshot it initially and had to pull back a little bit, and then slowly just kind of inched my way, figuring out what kind of stuff I enjoy making and what I feel like I'm better at doing. As my skill set has changed, right? As you go through grad school, you learn more about interpreting research and communicating research. And so I'm like, okay, well, I feel much more confident about that now than I used to. And there, so it's morphed over time, but it really, it started out really as like a marketing kind of thing of like, man, like how do I get clients? How do, why would anyone give me a chance? I'm just some random dude. So I need some way to display that I know what I'm talking about. So that was kind of the initial thing. And not just like information wise, but like with the context and nuance around it that shows the emotional intelligence piece. So that was kind of the goal with that. And it's, like I said, it's changed over time. It was, earlier it was more writing and like infographic stuff. And then now, obviously, we did the podcast, and, I've been very fortunate to be on other people's podcasts sometimes, which is always super fun. And it's just, yeah, I mean, just anything. I really like being able to just talk because it's so much easier, and you get to interact with another person, which is awesome. And you don't have to sit there and agonize over like, oh, is this infographic the right color? Or should I put this line over here or whatever? And I mean, I still do the infographic stuff sometimes, so I'm not hating on it, but it's nice to have different things. And I've always been like artistic also. Like I've always loved drawing and painting, and there was a time I wanted to be a tattooer. And so being able to kind of use some of that stuff every now and then, just like, oh yeah, this is aesthetically pleasing. That's kind of nice. And, you can scratch that itch a little bit with infographic stuff. As part of why I still do it is just, it's kind of fun it feels more artistic, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of been the process with it. It was just starting because I wanted to try to get some clients and continuing because, I mean, continuing for that same reason also, but also because people have given feedback that it's helpful. I'm like, oh, sweet, I'll do more of that, because it feels good to get that feedback, but also like you're helping people, and that's awesome. So it's a win-win, right? Like it's not, it's not purely altruistic because it makes me feel good also. And I want that. And it's a fun part of the job. And it also helps to refine my skills. The more I practice communicating something, the better I get at it. And so it's I guess multifaceted the more that I think about it, which is interesting. But yeah, dude, and at the end of the day, it's really fun. And I just love, being able to, it's fun to do stuff with other people, right? Like the other DDS guys are obviously super fun to do stuff with. And then, doing this with you is amazing. And like I said, whenever I've been able to talk to someone else on their podcast, it's amazing. And it's I don't know, it's another echo of that, like, wow, this lifting thing has led to so much cool stuff, so much connection with other people. And like at the end of the day, that those connections and those relationships are what are really the most important, and those are the things you're going to remember at the end of your life, right? It's not about I wrote this awesome squat program, dude. Like, that's cool, I guess. But the friend, it's all about the friends we made along the way, you know?
Beautiful. Beautiful. It is.
That's it.
It's I think content creation can get also a bad rap because it's the same idea. It's pretty common, and it's pretty, we consume a lot as human beings nowadays. So I think on that note of just being like consumption focused, like what why create? Like what is, when you're creating, like how do you feel? What kind of things go through your mind? How does it lead to, like, what do you gain out of it yourself? Because you said it is a little bit selfish in quotations, these skills that you're learning, but like what does like creation really do for you, and why are you doing that?
That's a great question. Man, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I have to, like, not in the sense of external pressure, but just like, I love this thing and I just want to talk about it, And I feel like that's a big thing that I get out of it, is the satisfaction of just being able to talk about something that you're passionate about, right? Everybody likes doing that. And I think that that's a big thing. I think just the general, good vibes of getting positive feedback, all of that is always nice. And I think that there's something else there that I'm trying to like dig up the words for it.
It's hard to put words to it, and that's why I asked that question, and that's why one, it's also cool that you're taking the time to think about it, because it isn't an easy question, and it's not something that is really thought about, like why we create and what does creation mean, because again, we're so caught up in consuming, not to sound like existential, whatever it is, but I think it's important. I think one point you really made that I can resonate with is because you feel like you have to. It's when you put something out there, it feels good. When you're doing it, it feels so good because same idea. You love this stuff, so it's like it only makes sense to share that love and to share that information, because you don't have any kind of end goal necessarily by doing it. You're just, I'm just gonna put this out there. People can resonate with that. Awesome. If people follow me for that, cool. If I get clients for that, that's great too. But it's like you're doing it because, again, just you love it. And I think I got into a loop where I was same thing, where I was consuming so much, I just wasn't creating, and I felt kind of empty, even though I'm consuming so much, which is kind of those are opposites, right? So it almost gives you that. It gives you stuff. Again, it's hard. This is where the words are hard to put to it, and it's like we're kind of trying to find it. But I think so. Coming up, consuming all this content, right? The Lane Norton stuff and all that. When did it really click? You're like, I can do that too, right? Because I think that's the other big point of it. Is like, okay, anyone can do it, but what made you really take that first step and put that thing out there? Because like that can also be very scary because you're putting it out for everyone to see.
Sure. So really, okay. So I think I have one other thing for that last piece that I think I'm sure you can relate to this too. That I was listening to, I was actually talking to an author that I really like. His name's Christopher Rocchio. He wrote a series called Sun Eater. That is, he's one of the most intelligent people I've ever come across. It's crazy. but he was talking about his opinions on like why do we read or why does he write, um, and it basically the boiled down. It's like part of why we're taught to read in school and taught to write in school. What they like, it sort of has lost its way over time. That now it's sort of like it's because it's part of the curriculum, or it's because you need to learn how to read, or it's basic level stuff. But what it used to be was reading helped you learn about the world and therefore learn about yourself based on your reactions to those things and whatnot. And writing is even more so learning about yourself and exploring these things and growing and liberating your brain, your soul from your physical body, right? That you're growing, expanding. That's why they were called liberal arts, right? Is what he was telling me. And I was like, wow, that's crazy to think about. And I think connecting that to this, right? I think it's the same thing. It's part of why we make content, that we consume content because we want to understand and we want to relate and all those things, and think about how we feel when we hear this thing, or like, oh, that just doesn't seem right to me, or like, yes, that resonates, or whatever. And then we make our own stuff as a way to grow and explore, and like, I don't know. So that feels like something,
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's so well said. And like it, like you said, it's different paths on the journey of self growth
yeah,
and learning, right? It's different ways to learn because, like you said, it's
yes,
when you have to create, you have to, you know, dig deep into a different part of you. It's not consuming. It's more
yes,
active. It's more intrusive. You can even say it's more honest. There's a lot of things to it that you can't really get by
yeah,
consuming, and through that, there's all those other things that help other people and that do other things to come with it. But it's that part that stays within you that you don't always share with other people directly. It's like,
mhm,
I learned this about myself. I put out this piece of content, and through that experience, I learned that I process this information in this way. That's really cool. Or maybe I learned where one of my weaknesses lied, and I can then explore that further, and I can grow on that because then through that, I can be a better science communicator or content creator, which means I'm a better coach, which means I'm helping more people or helping them in a better way. It all kind of comes back to that, which is so cool. And it's again, that's why it's fun to dive a little bit deeper into those things. That's why I'm asking these kind of hard questions, because
yeah,
there's so much more to it, man. And it's beautiful because there's layers. There's so many layers, and
yeah,
there's layers that we don't even talk about, which is, I think, sometimes it's hard to, but it's important to, and that's why again we're trying to do those things at the same time.
yeah.
So in a similar vein, what I'm gonna ask a hard question again. If you don't want to answer this is okay too.
Okay.
But you said a lot of things about who you are, and a lot of those things relate to helping others, which is a fantastic thing. It really is. But what is something that maybe you haven't said or shared about that is integral to who you are? It could be a set of skills. It could be something that's important to you, something that you really love to do that you don't always talk about. Like, what is it that makes Jake Jake? Because then, of course, this we see the end result of this amazing human being. We see the science communication, we see the coaching, we see the training, all those things. But what's something that has led to you being you that maybe we don't know about?
These are good questions.
Again, if you don't want to answer that, if you want some more time to think
No,
about it, I can talk about other stuff too. So
yeah. I mean, I think I want a good life, man. At the end of the day, I want to have a good life because I'm like, no one really knows what comes after this, and life is short. Even if we live a super long time, life is short, and we might not live a super long. Nothing's promised. So I want to live a good life, and what does that mean to me? I think that the older I get, the more I realize that it's the connections and the relationships that matter the most. Um, but to be completely honest, and this sounds horrible, is that's really only been over the last year or two that I've really understood that. Probably more like the last year, if I'm being really honest. So the other stuff that's kind of there is this idea of there's sort of two things I think, right? One is enjoying my time, um, and that's a big part of like why I wanted to do this job because I knew it would fit my lifestyle preferences. I knew that I was passionate about lifting. I felt I sort of skipped over your question earlier, but when did it click into place that I could do this is I sort of immediately felt confident that I could do it because I was like, I know I can connect with people. And like this, again, this sounds horrible, but I was like, I'm a smart dude. Like I've always done well in school. I can learn all this stuff, and I'll be okay. So like I felt confident that I could do a good job. So I think that's part of it, is like enjoying my time, is doing something that I'm good at, doing something that people value, doing something I enjoy, where I don't have to clock in at whatever time and clock out at whatever time. And, um, where all of that stuff is in place. And then there's this other piece that is even more, I think, intrinsic to bodybuilding specifically. And that is sort of the journey of self-mastery, that has been, I think that's related to some of the mental health stuff too, about like, I don't like that. I don't like having to deal with that. I want to, gain the tools to, I don't think that they'll ever completely just disappear, but when they come up, that I can deal with it more easily and more quickly and things like that. But also to growing up, it was like my name was self-sabotage, right? Like it was just one thing after another. And that now I'm starting to like figure out how to not do that so much. And that's been a big journey, just getting out of your own way, and actually doing the thing, like actually thinking that you deserve the things that you want, truly believing that and going after it, right? That's a big piece. And just learning about how my brain works, what are my strengths that I can leverage, what are my weaknesses that I either can develop or just kind of work around in the meantime if it's too overwhelming to try to develop everything. And so I think there's all those things at play, but at the end of the day, they all kind of come together about like, I get one life and I just want to have a good time, man. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be stressed about things all the time. I don't want to hate my job. I don't want to hate my relationship. I don't want to not have any friends. I want just a good experience. And at the end of the day, I think that's what motivates me to do stuff and try to get better at things. And because they'll all kind of, I talk about this with Zach Robinson, who also is with Data Driven Strength, about maximizing area under the curve happiness, and how sometimes that means you do something in the short term that's not super super fun, but it's the delayed gratification that means you'll have more fun later. It's just like bodybuilding prep, right? Like I don't like eating 115 grams of carbs per day. It's not that fun. But the process and what I get out of this makes it all super worth it, and it's all good. So it's super simple at the end of the day, right? I just want to have a good life and enjoy it, and that's it.
For such a hard question, and like I said, it is so simple, but yet the question still remains hard regardless. And I think to see how well you then answered it and articulated it, just I think speaks volumes to the work you put in for yourself, which it should not be overshadowed. You should be extremely proud of that too. And again, I appreciate you being able to open and experience those things and talk to us about it and answer these hard questions because it's, man, it's just, we just learned so much about you through that, especially this last one, which is so cool to see. And I just wish I could hug you through this thing, man. I really do. Just, yeah. I really do. And it's,
Thanks, dude.
yeah, it's, so we definitely, we talked a lot about, who you are and where you've been and all these things. And what about what's ahead? What are you most excited about for the path ahead?
You know what? Okay. You know what I'm most excited about? And this is probably going to throw people off. Unless they really, really, like if they know me in real life, they won't be surprised. But what I'm really excited about is continuing to build these skills with all of this stuff, right? The research, the coaching, the content creation, all of that. Continue to build those things, continue to build it into something that is, viable in terms of paying my rent and things like that, right? Especially once I graduate and I'm out in the real world. But then I think what I'm most excited about is having all that stuff feel awesome. And I just, it's fulfilling and it's like, oh, yes. But having some time that opens up after I graduate to where I can finally get into my childhood dream of writing fantasy books. That's what I want. That's like, I sort of what I was talking about earlier, trying to be preemptive with avoiding burnout in my career, that I don't think I can just do one thing and not ever get burned out. I think I need multiple things. So where if I can have it so that I can do all this awesome fitness stuff and have a little bit of time on the side to where I can do some writing and try to do this and have like a little bit of income, like I'm never going to be, like one of these massive, whatever, making millions of dollars a year from books or whatever. But like, just a little bit of something. And it's just fun and it's creative and it's that outlet. And it's, a lot of the stuff we were talking about was just creating and putting something out there and what you get from that. That's what I want to do. And I'm also like, maybe I'm horrible at it and it goes nowhere and I try to decide to do something else, right? That's okay. But being able to give that like a real shot is just like, it makes me so happy to think about. And I just am so excited, but we got to, wrap up the dissertation first.
Yeah.
Something about that keeps you busy,
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Dude, do it. 100% you should do it. I already know you're taking steps specifically for that, but everything that we learned in this episode about you also shows that you can do it and that you should do it and that you will do it. We know that. And a couple years down the line, I'll be at your book signing. I'll be like, please sign my book, please. And you'll be like, yeah, this guy again. And it's going to be cool. It's going to be exciting. So I very much look forward to that. I hope everyone else does too. But I do have one last question.
Okay.
And it might be another hard one, but hey, I've been throwing them at you and you've been doing really good at it. So it's future Jake comes back in time and gets to talk to also future Jake that just steps off stage and finishes up this bodybuilding prep. What does future Jake say to this future Jake that just stepped off stage?
You did a good job. You did a good job and this was worth it. That's what feels right.
That's just gonna make me tear up. I'm not even lying. It's just so. It's hard, such a hard question, but it's like, as soon as like, the way you said it, it's just I got chills, and it makes that's just like that's it. I appreciate that. That's really good. It's yeah.
Okay. I didn't expect that.
I didn't expect it.
We've talked about this before, man. You and me both struggle with really giving ourselves props and like being proud of what we've done and really telling yourself like, you did a good job, dude. And we got to do a better job of that. It's important. And I think that this like I am genuinely proud of how I've gone through this prep so far. And we gotta finish the thing out still, right? Yeah. It's not done. Yeah. Job's not done, right? Mm-hmm. As rest in peace, Kobe. But we're getting close, and I can't. It's like at this point, there's no way I'm gonna binge tonight. You know what I mean? Like it just is not gonna happen. So yeah, dude, I think that's the thing. Yeah.
That again, it was so well said, and it's you just feel and hear the raw emotion, and that's what it's all about. That's what all this is about. That's what a bodybuilding prep's about. That's what life's about. Like you just said before that too. It all comes down to these kind of things, and it's so cool to hear about how you got here, to hear about the real you, to see it, to feel it. And we can all feel it in this episode. We really can. So again, I just want to give a big thank you for allowing us to listen, to letting us take a seat and hear about the Jake journey and to be a part of it. And I appreciate you very much. And we're also grateful that you're here to do this. So,
thank you. This is awesome, dude. It's weird but also fun to talk about yourself and think about yourself in that way.
Yeah,
because like you said last time, like it makes you realize some things, some stuff clicks into place. I don't know, it's cool you ask some very good questions. I'm glad to do it with you. I love you, man. This is just awesome, and glad to be uncovering these layers alongside you.
100%. I love you too, and I'm so glad we're here and we're doing the damn thing, and we'll continue to do it. So I'm just excited for the future as well. So but again, huge thank you to you. Huge thank you to everyone listening. Really appreciate you being here and just getting a little bit insight into Jake, into us, into that training arc. So as always, we'll catch you at the next one.